I look like a similar Islam. It's Christmas gift guide time, bitches. Oh, I'm not okay. Santa baby, a 54 convertible to light blue. I'll wait up for you, dear. Except it's me. I'm Santa. It's me. Hi guys, it's Leanne, and it's that festive time of the year. Well, it's almost the festive time of the year. My Christmas decorations aren't quite up yet, although this may or may not be the second time that I have worn this glorious outfit in public. You want to see the tights again? You know you want to see the tights again. Haha! Look at the tights. It is indeed the time that we start to think about gifts for our loved ones. Gifts which may represent our loved ones' tastes or ours, because ours are clearly better, right? I mean, right? Is that not just accepted logic? Especially this year when the publishing supply chain and many other supply chains have been impacted by, oh, so many things. We have to be thinking a little bit in advance. There's going to be far less rushing out the day before Christmas to buy things, particularly if in the UK we're back on lockdown. Yes. I last did a Christmas gift guide 2 years ago on my channel, and I've been thinking a lot about how I wanted to do it this year. There are so many amazing festive gift guides already out there dedicated to literary fiction or thrillers or romance, but I have so many little niche books across so many little niche subjects that is what I have decided to bring to you. I present to you Leanne's festive gift guide for the underrepresented categories or something. So without further ado, let's dive in to whatever this is. The first category that we're going to cover is fun non-fiction books. Books that when you open them underneath the Christmas tree with family are going to cause some conversations. I have recommended this book and indeed this person many times on my channel because I absolutely love her and her tongue-in-cheek look at a serious subject. This is Will the Cat Eat My Eyeballs by Doughty. Doughty is a visionary mortician, shall we call her, who runs the Order of the Good Death, which is an organisation in America that is trying to make people more death positive. It's trying to strip back what we think about death and make it fun, because it's gonna happen, right? This has got dark very quickly. Warning, this may happen at your Christmas party. This book is entirely made up of questions that Caitlin has been asked over the years by a number of different people about weird death scenarios, like if I die, will my cat eat my eyeballs? And if there was a death in the International Space Station, what would they do with the body? Next up, I have a book by James Felton. James is a writer and journalist. He regularly appears on The Guardian, but I know him from here on his Twitter, where he is every day absolutely hilarious and mostly roasting the British government. I have his book 52 + 1 times that Britain was a Bellend. I don't think I've ever successfully got through this entire title in one go. This is, in James's own words, 52 + 1 times that Britain was actually awful, that they were on the wrong side of history, but it's the things that we cheerfully omit from our classroom and that we don't learn in university and that are very much not present in the narrative when we talk about all of Britain's accomplishments. There's amazing illustrations at the start of every one of these awful incidents, which are things like, we hatched a plan to wipe out a nation's food supply using delicious anthrax cake. We cleaned chimneys by lobbing a goose up the flue in a creative tax avoidance effort. If nothing else, this book will simply affirm on Christmas Day that your judgment about humanity was indeed correct all the time. Next up, one of my absolute favourites, we have A Curious History of Sex, with this delightful cover written by Dr. Kate Lister, who runs the very popular Twitter account Whores of Yore, which very much does what it says on the tin, as does this book. This is a history of sex which goes all the way from basically the Victorian era up until today. It doesn't just interrogate acts and fetishes, although there are a few bits and pieces of that in there, but instead it looks at how we think about sex, what words we give it, what words we say are absolutely not appropriate for it, what actions are okay in public and what ones are okay as long as nobody finds out about them. There are a lot of pictures in here too that will definitely start conversations, but I couldn't find a single one that wouldn't get me demonetized. So this. Next up, another author that I absolutely love supporting and think the festive time is the perfect time to dive into. We have Meaty by Samantha Irby. This is the first in Samantha's 3 memoir essay collections which are out right now. This one is less directly memoir-y about Samantha's life and more just a kind of I'm 30 and what the hell do I do with the rest of my life? It answers a lot of questions and it asks even more questions like, actually, do you know what would it really be that bad to die alone if this is what I have to do for dating? These are so Christmas appropriate. Now you see what Christmas is like in my house. The tagline on the back of this one says that Samantha Irby covers it all with wit and honesty and serves it with a side of Instagram frittata. If you ever wanted something that poked more holes in popular culture. And last up, for hilarious non-fiction books, I have got Texts from Jane Eyre by Mallory Ortberg. This book literally asks, what would happen if Scarlett O'Hara had an unlimited data plan? It spears your favourite classics all the way from Hamlet to Sweet Valley High, all in text format. Let's face it, classics are by far the most gifted book at Christmas, right? Beautiful editions of all of the things that you've ever loved, like Sense and Sensibility and Pride and Prejudice, and I can't think of anything that's not Jane Austen, but you get my point. This book is like the anti-version of that because it rips a hole in literally all of them. Like, what would happen if the person locked in the attic had a phone? What would realistically happen if we actually realised that Peter was, can I say fuckboy on my channel? I probably shouldn't. What would actually happen if Peter ever bothered texting Wendy before he came over? You know, who texts in all caps and who communicates only in emojis? This book will tell you. Next up in my underrepresented gift categories, we have mental health books. Let's just take a semi-serious second here and say that Christmas is stressful. The festive period is stressful for a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. And I honestly think what better time to hand somebody a gift that says, I see you, I see that you are struggling, and I know you might not want to talk about it right now, but I'm holding some space for you. Pay for more healthy interactions at Christmas. Am I right? I am right. I'm seldom wrong. The first book that I have got here is Notes from Your Therapist by Allyson Dinneen. Allyson runs the really popular Instagram account of the same name. She is a mental health professional and she posts a lot of handwritten insights that she has gleaned in her own life from sessions, from books that she's read, from different people's wisdom that she's gathered over the years. She posts them just like this, and this is literally a collection of the ones that have been the hardest hitting, the most profound, the ones that have reached the most people. No wonder I was so afraid of conflict. It's not like I grew up with any experience watching people make time to work things out. I think that represents a lot of families at the festive period. There's a lot of stuff that goes on under the surface. So this might be able to help that person in your life articulate that. Next up on my list are 2 books that I will probably never shut up about, because I honestly think that if I could make a required reading list for life that everybody had to read, these would be near the top. The first one is Tiny Beautiful Things, Advice on Love and Life, and the other one is Brave Enough, a mini instruction manual for the soul, both of them by Cheryl Strayed. Cheryl Strayed is of course the author of Wild. This first one is a collection of essays essentially that Cheryl Strayed wrote while she was writing anonymously as Sugar. This is one of the most profound books that I have ever read, and definitely the rawest book that I have ever read. I think quite a lot of the time when we're reading memoirs, because we're living through that person's personal experience, we experience the highs and the lows with them, but we don't always take away from it the kind of advice that they would want to give a friend based on their experience, and that is very much what this is. It's one of those books that literally reached into my soul and shone a light in dark places, and I think everybody needs it. But if you want a more bite-sized version of that one, we have Brave Enough, which is a compilation of some of Cheryl's most profound and best pieces of advice, and I also think that it's one of those like really nice stocking-sized books that you just think is going to be a cute coffee table book, and then you start reading it and you're like, oh, my mind has been blown. It's a hidden wisdom bomb in your stocking, only to be surpassed by a hidden chocolate bomb in your stocking. That's all I'm saying. Next up, I have a book which I guess I would put in the self-help category, which is not often the stuff that I talk about on this channel. I am a bit leery about self-help books in general, but this one absolutely blew my mind. This is 10 to Zen by Owen O'Kane. Owen O'Kane is a psychotherapist, and he actually leads a psychology unit. He's also worked in palliative care and a few other places in the NHS Mental Health Trust. Even in his writing, I think you get a sense of calm. I think you get the essence of what it would be like to sit in a session with him. 10 to Zen is essentially a breakdown of 10 minutes. Literally 10 minutes that you should take every day or when you're struggling to get back to a place where you feel calm. We have a section here that's minute 1, time to stop. How to make yourself stop and stop panic thinking and just sit in the moment that you're in. It is filled with exercises and genuine techniques that you can apply to your life, which I have used and I think are great. So this one is quite high up there. Next up, I have Odd Girl Out by Laura James. This is essentially a memoir of neurodivergence and is maybe a good one to give to people in your life who are somewhere on that diagnosis train, because Laura takes you right back to well before her diagnosis, to when she just was struggling to exist, and then it takes you to that first step of going to the doctor and everything that happened after that. And I think that's a part of the process in mental health memoirs that I don't think gets talked about very often. It's the actual diagnosis part, is the hoops that you have to jump through and the different ways that it makes you feel when all these different words are being thrown at you. Also helps that it is queer and it is quite funny and definitely, again, profound in a few places. I think this would also be good for the younger people in your life, the people in their teens who are maybe starting to look at diagnoses now that they're having to exist in the world. And last up for this category, I have a book that I have also recommended a few times but still absolutely love, and it is Remember This When You're Sad by Maggy van Eijk. It is subtitled A Book for Mad, Sad and Glad Days from Someone Who's Right There With You, and it is kind of a loose memoir of 1 year in Maggy's life. When she turned 27, she was fired twice in close succession. She left her first massive long-term relationship, and she ended up in A&E over 12 times, I think, because of alcohol poisoning and a bunch of other things. She was at her lowest low, and this is a glimpse of how she got there and how she dug herself out the other side. It is told in a very, I want to say pithy, but I don't mean that in a reductive way, but it's told in a very sort of matter-of-fact but quite funny way, and it is peppered with these really cute illustrations, and actually it has stuck with me for a really long time, and I think it would be a perfect gift for anybody in your life who you think might be struggling a little bit this Christmas. The next category that I have are graphic novels and coffee table books that don't suck. Let's be honest, as book lovers, we have all at one point or another been given a crappy coffee table book by a well-meaning relative who knows that we like books but just doesn't know what to get us. So I don't know, here's some pictures of endangered chimpanzees and jaguars and Britain. historically from like 42 onwards in pictures. So let's just break the chain of awful coffee table books and give graphic novels instead, and cool graphic things that will provide pops of colour underneath the Christmas tree and will make people laugh at how original they are. Shall we? The first graphic novel that I have to show you is Good Girls Don't Make History. I actually backed the Kickstarter for this stunning graphic novel to come into existence, and I am so very glad that I did. You can now get it in all good book outlets. It is literally the story of women's right for the vote in the States, and it is told by women to other women in voting lines waiting for the polling stations to open. So we start each section in a contemporary position with these people in line, and then it tells the story of the women as we go back through history. It's absolutely stunning, and there's so much diversity and representation in here, and it is written in such a way that it would make a perfect gift for an adult or for a younger child who is looking to learn a little bit more about history. Next up, let's move on to something that's a little bit more coffee table book, a little bit less graphic novel. This is a collection of comics. It is What's Up Beanie by Alina Tysoe. This is of course from the very popular Instagram comic What's Up Beanie, which I have been obsessed with for a very, very long time, and it features the adventures of young Beanie with older Alina, who is trying to sort of process her life and who thinks back on her younger self as both the reason why she is this way and also the antidote to a lot of the situations that she finds herself in. It's so funny, and I think it would be really appealing for people of all different ages in your family. Like, you could give this to your gran just as well as you could give it to your mum or younger sister. Like, I think it's great. Another stunning graphic novel for those of you who are a little bit more on the spooky side of the equation, those of you who like horror all year round and particularly at Christmas. We have got Thornhill by Pam Smy. This is written and illustrated by Pam Smy, and I have not stopped raving about this since I read it. A little girl whose mother has died and whose father is trying his level best to raise her as a single parent while working to try and keep a roof over their heads, and she's very lonely. She comes home every day to an empty house, and she becomes obsessed with Thornhill, which is the old sort of Victorian manor building that is derelict behind her house, and some very weird things went on there. And as time goes on, Thornhill more and more calls our younger narrator to come and visit. Pam Smy has just brought out another graphic novel too, which is again all in black and white like this, and it's on my Christmas list. That's all I'm saying. It should be on yours. Next up, I have a kind of coffee table book that was bought in a tradition of Harry and I's. I always buy some sort of like small graphic novel or like quick, easy to read book about animals to go in Harry's stocking that we can read together in bed on Christmas morning. And last year or the year before, I think, I bought Animal Anatomy by Sophie Corrigan. Sniff tips, running sticks and other accurately named animal parts. This is literally a book wherein Sophie Corrigan goes through and illustrates these gorgeous, gorgeous animals, but then tells you what their anatomy should really have been called. Like muscular didgeridoo for the tail of this kangaroo, or flashy patterned raincoat, chunky butt swisher, and terror prongs with the lions and the giraffes, and it just goes on like that. The illustrations in this are absolutely gorgeous. They're so funny. I honestly, by the end of it, I had changed so much of my vocabulary to only encompass these terms. This is definitely good for any of those younger people in your life who are in their I love animals and everything about animals phase, and also for any animal lovers in your life who are a little bit older and who, like me, have a strange sense of humour. Next up, an absolutely beloved graphic novel. I have Sheets by Brenna Thummler. Also, Brenna Thummler's name is really fun to say. Thanks, Brenna. This one is about Marjorie, who lives essentially her entire life in her parents' laundry. She's 13, and when she's not trying to survive, and by trying to survive I mean trying to survive in middle school. She is surrounded by laundry and the sounds of dryers and the smell of dryer sheets and detergent, and she just wants to be anywhere else. And then she meets Wendell. Wendell is a ghost who is part of the Sad Ghosts Club, and they are more concerned with things like, you know, unavoidable stains, being snagged on things. And Wendell goes on a little bit of a wander one day and manages to break free from the realm of ghosts and accidentally bumps into Marjorie, because where else would ghosts want to go to get rid of stains than a laundry, right? The ghostly parts of this graphic novel are told in this beautiful limited pastel colour palette, but then when Wendell breaks into Marjorie's world, we get more full colour, and oh, poor Marjorie. I felt for both of the characters in this real bad, like real bad. I love this one, it's great. Next up, a graphic novel for the science fiction lovers in your life, and specifically for anybody who has loved The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. Next best thing is this graphic novel, which feels very like that universe. It is On a Sunbeam by Tillie Walden. This is about a group of people who are essentially architects. Sometimes they are excavating old ruins of buildings and making them stable and bringing them back to all their glory, and sometimes they're just like, you know, building office buildings. And again, exactly like A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, we have Mia, who is our narrator. She is running away essentially to join the crew of Atkiss. She's trying to forget about her previous life, I guess you might want to call it. This one, like A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, creeps up on you. It starts off as very gentle and just kind of a fun ride, and then by the end of it, it's all the feels and you're really mad. really mad. But it's also just a stunning object. It would be a beautiful thing to give any sci-fi lovers in your life for Christmas. And finally, I couldn't round off this category without mentioning the latest Sarah Anderson, Sarah's Scribbles graphic novel. This is a collection of her comics from her Instagram and newly drawn ones just for this edition. Again, there's no way that you've been on the internet for more than 5 minutes and haven't seen some of Sarah's comics reposted somewhere. Her art is absolutely iconic. They are a nice sort of mix between mental health comics, comics about what you can do when you're struggling, and how it feels to be in your 30s and feel like you haven't accomplished anything and you don't have a real career, and like you're making up adulting as you go along. Also, just for an added bonus, all of the covers have genuine fuzzy jumpers that you can rub and fuzzy titles, like they're actually flocked. It's just, it's everything. It's perfect. It's everything. Next up, I have a category that I am going to call ancient stuff that is not retellings. There are so many more qualified people on BookTube to tell you all about the best and most beautiful retellings that have come out over the last couple of years. So I am instead going to focus on like non-fiction and collected awesomeness that you can find that is ancient stuff in it for the person in your life who has maybe read every single one of those amazing retellings and is looking for more. First one that I have got is one that I will never ever stop showing on this channel, and it is 100 Nasty Women of History by Hannah Jewell. This entire book, which was published in 2017, was essentially a response to Donald Trump. I never thought I would say that name on my channel. When he was a presidential candidate in 2016, and he famously called Hillary a nasty wrinkle-mouthed little woman, or, you know, general horrible words to that effect. This is essentially a breakneck tour from the ancient world through to about 1933-ish, looking at all of the forgotten women who made up our history and the truly badass things that they did. This is once again not a book for the younger readers in our life. There is quite a lot of sexual politics and sweary swears in this one, but if you are buying for an adult reader in your life who loves a bit of humour and also loves a bit of feminism and ancienty type stuff, this is the place to start. Next up, just to prove that there are, you know, more than just ancient Rome and ancient Greece in the ancient world, I bring to you Searching for the Lost Tombs of Egypt by Chris Nuneaton. This is essentially a look at how many possible tombs there are still to find hidden in the sands and how we might go about finding them. It takes you right from the very early excavations that like Agatha Christie and her husband were going on. You know, if you're a bookish person like me and you love a bit of our Agatha, then you know that she was absolutely obsessed with archaeology, and some of these digs, these very famous digs, are mentioned in here. What we have done with the artefacts since, and the fact that we absolutely know from the writings of the time that there are other burial chambers, but we have no way to find them. It's a mystery is what they said. They also said, let's pack her full of full colour pictures of some of the things that we have found. Also, let's do some vintage black and white pictures printed throughout the other pages because we want to make it just that snappy and accessible. Another non-fiction series of books which acknowledges that there were more ancient worlds than Greece and Rome is the 24 Hours in the History of X Place. So I have got here 24 Hours in Ancient Rome and 24 Hours in Ancient Athens, although out on my shelf somewhere there I also have 24 Hours in Egypt and 24 Hours in China. And these books are literally structured exactly as if you were getting up, break of dawn, in a new morning, and you were following each hour in the day of the people who lived in ancient places. So for example, in the contents one for this one, we've got 7th hour of the night, 8th hour of the night, etc. The vase painter begins a new project. The wrestling instructor prepares a class. We follow through all different levels of society in these books, from the very, very rich to the poorest of the poor. They're very potted histories. They're a really easy way to get some really quick knowledge about the time before, you know, you return to your Greek myth retellings. Next up, if you have somebody in your life who likes crime or thrillers or true crime but is also into the ancient world or retellings, you need to get them A Fatal Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum by Emma Southton. Emma Southton literally looks at murder, at homicide in Roman society and asks, how common was it actually, and where was the most common place for it to happen? Because of course we all know about the murder on the Senate floor of Julius Caesar, and we all know about all of the copious murders that happened in the myths. But the Roman society was actually quite just. It had lawyers, it had courts, it had a semblance of democracy, and so actually homicide was viewed in a very different way than I thought that it would be. This book goes from the Senate floor, of course, but through Roman law, murder in the family, murder in marriage, murder in the slave state, and it looks at all of the different places that it just never occurred to me that interesting murders might have happened. Of course, I cannot go through this category without showing you this book. This is our very own Jean from Jean's Bookish Thoughts, Greek myth non-fiction children's book. That was a mouthful. This is illustrated by Katie Ponder. It's absolutely stunning, and it is an introduction for kids to Greek myths and the way that the gods and monsters came to actually exist. It's a very, very accessible book, but it's also completely suitable for adults. If you have any adults in your life who like art and illustration books and who would like a coffee table type book about Greek myths, I would definitely suggest that you get your hands on this one. Plus, you know, Jean's awesome and she's my friend. Now you get your own copy. This one's mine. Got my name in it. And finally, to round out this category, I have two books that are both absolutely stunning but incredibly affordable. I was shocked at how easy these were to get my hands on them. I spotted them on a friend's shelf and absolutely fell in love with them, and just so surprised that such gorgeous quality books would be in a price bracket that I wasn't going to cry about, and so I can't not include them here. First of all, we have got Classic Mythology A to Z, an encyclopedia of gods, goddesses, heroes and heroines by Anne Gazetsky, and then we have got Mythology, Timeless Tales of Gods and Heroes by Edith Hamilton. They are absolutely chock full of these gorgeous tables which actually helped make a lot of sense for me about Greek and Roman myth, and they have beautiful layouts with this gold gilding on the edge. Some of the pages have these black and gold illustrations, and honestly they just look so impressive. They're like so meaty and solid. They catch everybody's eye. Everybody asks about them. I just think they would be a great present for anybody in your life who likes the ancient world or classic mythology. And finally, for my last category, beautiful books. Books that you can give to loved ones to put under the Christmas tree. Pride of place that you know that they will keep for years and years to come. So you will not find Pride and Prejudice here, you will not find Sense and Sensibility, or again any of the other books that I apparently can't remember that are classics that get published over and over again in pretty editions. There's little chance that the things in this stack will be things that your loved ones already have, particularly if they are collectors of really, really beautiful books. First up, especially for any poetry or art lovers in your life, I have this absolute beast. This is the Lost Words written by Robert Macfarlane and Jackie Morris. They are the poems of Robert Macfarlane, and Jackie Morris you might recognise from these covers for Robin Hobb's Assassin's Apprentice etc. book. She's now done the whole series. Just for reference, these are just the end papers. The premise of this book is essentially a modern fairy tale. It says, once upon a time, words began to vanish from the language of children. They disappeared so quietly that at first almost no one noticed, until one day they were gone. But there is an old kind of magic for finding what is missing and for summoning what has vanished. If the right spells are spoken, the lost words might return. Each of the poems in here are the name of something that has been lost, but the actual poem itself, each of the lines starts with a letter from the title. I absolutely love it. It's definitely a conversation piece. It would definitely be good for anybody in your life who is a cottagecore lover like me. Next up, we have one that I have featured many times on this channel and I will never stop talking about because more books like it need to exist. This is Santa's Husband by Daniel Kibblesmith, illustrated by A.P. Quash, and it is literally the tale of Santa Claus getting ready for Christmas and how Christmas works in the North Pole when Santa also has to consider the fact that he is married and that his husband gets to help him with Christmas. So this particular spread here says, Santa's husband helps Santa with all the hard work that makes Christmas happen, from making a list and checking it twice through to all of the other things that I won't spoil in the book. But needless to say, Santa and his husband have some issues surrounding who cleans up the house. That's all I'm gonna say. There are some truly relatable couple things in here, but this book is also incredibly diverse. Obviously we have a black Santa Claus on the cover, but there are so many other religions and festivities represented. This was when they got married, and you can see in all of these illustrations all of the myths, legends, Christmas and festive characters from around the world represented in here. There is a lot of chat about making sure that kids have an equal Christmas no matter what kind of family they come from too, whether it is a family with two dads or whether it is a foster family or whether you live with a grandparent. And it's just, oh, it's the kind of Christmas book that I think, if I'm getting emotional talking about this, that if I had had as a kid, I think might have changed my view of what families looked like and would have helped me a lot as a kid. So this is one that I definitely advocate for everybody in your life, not just small people. We read it every year. We absolutely love it. Next up, talking about all things queer, we have gender swapped fairy tales, which it just makes me so happy every time I look at this cover. This is by Carrie Fransman and Jonathan Plackett, and it does exactly what it says on the tin. It takes some of your most beloved fairy tales and flips them on their head. So it asks, what happens if we have handsome in the Beast instead of Beauty and the Beast? And it asks it with these gorgeous illustrations which almost look like paper cut art. What if the witch in Hansel and Gretel were a man? What if we had Sleeping Handsome in the wood? What if Snow White was not so white but Snowdrop? This is not just a beautiful collection, but it's also a really smart collection. It asks us a lot of very pointed questions about gender and sexuality and why we hold old fairy tales to old standards. Next up, another little stocking filler, a tiny little beautiful book. I have got Happy Hour Poems to Raise a Glass To with this gorgeous illustration, which is also debossed and also has the cloth bound spine, and in here we have got a little bookmark, ribbon bookmark, which I love too. This is exactly what it says in the tin. It's lots of little poems from throughout the years about booze and about toasts, and what better a thing to pop in a stocking for the Christmas period than this. Honestly, my dad has basically two hobbies. One of them is beer and the other one is the TV, and he's very, very difficult to buy for, but I even think that he might like this in his stocking this year. Another one that I have mentioned a few times because it's one of my absolutely favourite editions that I own is this edition of Wind in the Willows, which is the centenary edition. There are a lot of these centenary editions printed exactly like this in this very square, chunky hardback format. This one is illustrated by Robert Inkpen, and I just feel like it is peak cottagecore vibes. I feel like it is curl up by the fireside and read this in the winter vibes. I feel like it's a perfect way to introduce your children to a classic whilst also giving yourself something to feast your eyes upon. And if you are like me and you are somebody who does not have a child in your life, this is the perfect gift for you, from you, because it is stunning. And finally, I couldn't end a Christmas gift guide video without a little bit of Winnie the Pooh. This is the Winnie the Pooh complete collection of stories and poems by A.A. Milne with illustrations by E.H. Shepherd, and it is the Bear for All Ages edition by Egmont. So it comes in this beautiful box, and it is, if I can get it out, it's very heavy. It is this gorgeous edition here. This is a cloth back, a naked cloth back edition, which is just, it's just so satisfying to hold in your hands. One of the things that I love about the slipcase for this, to be perfectly honest, is that it's super sturdy. I have dropped this a few times and it is barely dented. These pages are glossy and luscious, and again, they'd be very easy to read to a child, but they're also very satisfying to read all on your own. It's very difficult to find a page in here which doesn't have an illustration on it. Almost all of them do. They are all chock full. Even the chapter headers have gorgeous little details on them. There's details at the bottoms of the pages. So there's something, I think, to see every time you open it. There's something new that your eyes will spot, and I really appreciate that from a collection like this. Of course, there are a lot of Winnie the Pooh collections out there. I myself have owned several of them because I am a little bit obsessed with Winnie the Pooh and always have been. I was definitely brought up with Pooh and Tigger in my life. But this was the one that I decided to go for when I bought one for myself, because I felt like it was a nice mix between affordable and luscious, which is exactly what we want when we're giving gifts to other people. Am I right? So that's it, guys. That is the end of my festive gift guide for this year. I hope that you have enjoyed this. I have been filming for literal hours. The sun has gone away. The day has turned. Harry has come home from work. Everything that could have gone wrong earlier in this video has gone wrong. So I hope that if you have lasted all the way to the end, you have enjoyed it. So if you have read any of the books on this list and you also agree with me and think that they would be great presents, let me know down below. If any of the books on this list have inspired you to think of other ones that I could add in future or that other people might like to check out, thank you so much for watching this video. If you have liked it, please whack that thumbs up button. It really, really helps. And if you're new here and you have liked my nonsense, then please subscribe for more festive shenanigans in the future. I will speak to you guys soon. Bye! Honestly, like, I have ripped entire shelves apart for you guys. The carnage that is on my desk and on my floor right now, I can't.